Welcome in Core. 250 million years ago, the Earth was unrecognizable, no separate continents, just a massive chunk of land called Pangea that was surrounded by a huge and deadly super ocean called Pangea, which nearly covered the entire planet. The climate was extreme, with vast deserts in the middle of the supercontinent and powerful monsoons along the coasts. Harsh environments, unpredictable weather, and landscapes far different from anything we see today dominated the Earth. But despite the intense weather and harsh conditions, this land wasn't empty. It was ruled by monsters. If you were walking through Pangea 220 million years ago, there was one rule: never let your guard down. Because lurking in the heat, stalking the dry riverbeds and open plains, was one of the most fearsome predators of its time. This was Postosuchus, and if you saw it, you were already dead. It was a massive, tank-like killer stretching up to 20 feet long, about the size of a small car. It weighed nearly 950 pounds, with a body covered in thick, bony armor like some kind of prehistoric war machine. At first glance, you might mistake it for a dinosaur, but this wasn't a dinosaur. Postosuchus had powerful legs positioned directly beneath its body, giving it the ability to chase down prey at high speeds. Some believe it could rear up on its hind legs and lunge forward in a terrifying boast of speed. Its head alone was intimidating enough, a massive skull packed with serrated, blade-like teeth perfect for crushing bone and tearing through flesh. It didn't just bite its prey, it destroyed it. And in Pangea, Postosuchus had plenty to feast on. It stalked the dry floodplains of what is now North America, ambushing anything smaller or slower than itself. Some believe it even hunted early dinosaurs, long before T-Rex ever existed. This was a predator at the top of the food chain. But in the brutal world of Pangea, survival wasn't about being the fastest. It was about being unstoppable. And that's exactly what this next land predator was. Saurosuchus wasn't built for speed. It was built to dominate. At 23 feet long and weighing over 2,000 pounds, it was one of the largest predators of its time. Its entire body was wrapped in thick, bony armor and resembled something like a walking fortress. Nothing could take it down, not early dinosaurs, not rival predators, and not even time itself, as it ruled the land for millions of years. Unlike the lighter, faster killers of Pangea, Saurosuchus didn't need to chase its prey. It had a different strategy: stare them down, move in slowly, and let them know they were already dead. And when it struck, it was over. Its head was massive, its jaws powerful enough to crush bone in a single bite. Its teeth were long, serrated, and curved backward. Once something was in its mouth, it wasn't coming back out. It was found in what is now South America, back when it was still fused into the endless supercontinent. It dominated floodplains, waiting near water sources, taking down anything that dared to drink too close. Some believed it even hunted early dinosaurs, grabbing them in its massive jaws before they ever had a chance to evolve into the giants we know today. But the creature that came before it didn't need armor. Its head was almost half its entire body, one giant bone-crushing skull on legs. This next beast wasn't built for defense. It was built to end things fast. Meet Thraciasuchus, a beast built for destruction. It wasn't the longest predator of its time, reaching around 15 feet and weighing upwards of 1,100 pounds. But it was a big, scary predator with one ridiculous feature: its head. Its skull was absolutely massive, nearly a third of its entire body length. That's like a human walking around with its head the size of a beach ball. And inside that oversized skull, rows of serrated teeth designed to rip through flesh with ease. Thraciasuchus was found in what is now South Africa, back when this land was still part of the supercontinent. It dominated floodplains and riverbanks, likely hunting anything that crossed its path. Some believe it didn't need to be the fastest. One bite was all it took. This wasn't a patient stalker or a careful hunter. It was a brute force killer. If it caught you, you weren't escaping. Thraciasuchus was all about power and brute force, but what if speed was a real key to survival? Because in Pangea, the killers weren't just big and armored, some were lightning fast. Enter Liliensternus, a predator that didn't need to crush its prey. It just had to catch it first. It wasn't the biggest killer in Pangea, but size doesn't matter when you're the fastest thing on two legs. This predator grew up to 17 feet long and weighed up to 400 pounds. But unlike the bulky armored giants before it, Liliensternus was built for speed. Its long, Powerful legs and lightweight frame made it a relentless pursuit hunter, the kind that didn't stalk its prey. It ran it down. It was found in what is now Germany, back when Europe was just another piece of the endless supercontinent. Some believe it hunted small reptiles and early dinosaurs, relying on quick strikes and razor-sharp teeth instead of brute force. But here's what made it even deadlier. Lilian sternus had claws, sharp gripping talons that could tear into struggling prey, keeping them from escaping once they were caught. This was a predator that didn't rely on ambush or overwhelming strength. It was pure speed and pure precision. But in Pangea, land wasn't the only place where nightmares hunted, because in the swamps and rivers, something far older and just as deadly was waiting beneath the surface. Meet Smilosutchus, a giant predator that looked like a crocodile but was something even worse. Smilosutchus was a true river monster. At 20 feet long and weighing up to 1,470 pounds, it was as big as a modern saltwater crocodile. But this thing wasn't a crocodile at all. It was part of an ancient group called phytosaurs, distant relatives of today's reptiles. It dominated Pangea's lakes, swamps, and riverbanks. It was found in what is now North America, back when this land was covered in vast floodplains. Smilosutchus lurked beneath the surface, waiting for anything, fish, amphibians, even land-walking prey, to make the mistake of getting too close. Its long, narrow snout was lined with razor-sharp teeth, perfect for grabbing hold and never letting go. And unlike modern crocodiles, its nostrils were positioned high on its head, allowing it to stay nearly invisible while lurking just beneath the water's surface. And here's another hair-raising thing about this monster. Smilosutchus wasn't just a water hunter. Its strong legs and powerful body meant it could leave the rivers behind, moving onto land to chase down prey that thought they were safe. Smilosutchus ruled the rivers, striking from the water's edge. But what if there was a predator that had the stealth of a crocodile and the speed of a land hunter? That's where Carnifex carolinensis, otherwise known as a Carolina butcher, comes in, and it lived up to that name. Long before dinosaurs took over, Carnifex was already perfecting the art of the kill. At 10 feet long and weighing around 1,200 pounds, it was a killing machine with raw, relentless speed, power, and aggression. It was found in what is now North Carolina, back when the region was part of a hot, swampy section of Pangea. Some believe Carnifex walked on two legs, unlike modern crocodiles, making it a fast, agile predator capable of chasing down prey on land. It was a runner, a slasher, a butcher. Its jaws were lined with serrated teeth, designed for ripping flesh, not just crushing it. And with its powerful legs, it could sprint after prey rather than just waiting for it to come too close. And in the deadly world of early Pangea, Carnifex didn't wait. It hunted. Pangea's land was a battlefield of claws, teeth, and speed. But the real monsters, they weren't on land at all. Beneath the waves of the vast Pangea Ocean, a creature lurked that made even the largest land predators look small. Meet Shastosaurus, the largest marine reptile to ever exist. At first glance, Shastosaurus looks like a modern dolphin, sleek, streamlined, and built for speed. But this wasn't a dolphin. This was an ichthyosaur, and it was absolutely massive, stretching up to 65 feet long and weighing a massive 90 short tons. Shastosaurus was longer than a school bus and rivaled some of today's largest whales. It dominated the Pangea Ocean during the late Triassic, ruling the waters while dinosaurs were just beginning to take over the world. But here's what made Shastosaurus different from most marine predators. It didn't have massive, razor-sharp teeth. Instead, it was a suction feeder. Some believe it hunted like modern whales, using its powerful jaws to suck up fish and soft-bodied sea creatures in one quick gulp. No struggle, no chase, just a vacuum of death. Despite its size, Shastosaurus wasn't a slow-moving giant. Its sleek body and strong tail made it an expert swimmer, allowing it to glide effortlessly through the prehistoric oceans. Shastosaurus ruled the oceans with size and speed. But not everything in Pangea was a silent giant, because lurking in the shallows, waiting to strike, was something far more sinister. Meet Nothosaurus, a sleek, sharp-toothed predator that turned the coastline into a hunting ground. If Shastosaurus was a whale of its time, Nothosaurus was a prehistoric equivalent of a sea lion, with an attitude. At around 10 feet long and weighing 330 pounds on average, it wasn't the biggest hunter in the ocean. But what it lacked in size, it made up for in stealth and precision. It was found all over the coastlines of Pangea, from what is now Europe, North Africa, and China, back when these lands were still fused together. Unlike some marine reptiles that live full-time in the water, Nothosaurus was an amphibious predator, just as comfortable slithering onto land as it was gliding through the waves. Its long, flexible body and webbed feet made it an expert swimmer, perfect for sneaking up on prey. But its real weapons were its long jaws packed with sharp, curved teeth, designed to grab slippery victims with deadly efficiency. Fish, squid, and anything else that made a mistake of getting too close. Some believe it hunted like a modern crocodile, lurking beneath the surface, waiting for the perfect moment to lunge. Others think it was a quick and agile chaser, using bursts of speed to catch its prey before dragging it into deeper water. One thing's for sure, if you were a small fish in the Triassic, Noasaurus was your worst nightmare. Nothosaurus was deadly in the shallows, but deeper in the Pangea Ocean, there was a predator that made everything else look like prey. If Noasaurus was a silent stalker, this next beast was a brute force killing machine. Meet Lioplurodon, a predator so powerful it didn't just rule the seas, it dominated them. If you were unlucky enough to find yourself in the Triassic seas, Lioplurodon is the last thing you'd ever see. This massive pliosaur was built for speed, strength, and ambush attacks. It could grow up to 33 feet long and weighed a whopping 150 tons, with almost a third of that being just its skull. Inside its powerful jaws were razor-sharp teeth, each up to 4 inches long, designed to tear through flesh like a hot knife through butter. Some believe Lioplurodon had one of the strongest bite forces of any marine reptile, making escape almost impossible once it had anything in its grip. Unlike slow-moving giants, Lioplurodon was built for speed. Its massive flippers were like underwater wings, propelling it through the ocean with powerful strokes. It didn't need to chase its prey for long. It would lunge from the depths, clamp down, and drag its victim into the abyss. This was a predator that didn't have to fight for dominance. In Pangeia's prehistoric food chain, there were hunters, there were the hunted, and then there was Lioplurodon. But before it ever ruled the seas, there was another apex predator, one so fearsome, so massive, it was like the T-Rex of the ocean, except it showed up millions of years earlier. Meet Thanatoarchon, the first true sea monster. Long before Lioplurodon terrorized the waves, Thanatoarchon was already proving that size and power always win. This giant ichthyosaur was a whopping 28 feet long, about as big as a modern orca. But this thing was no gentle whale. It was a pure-blooded predator built to take down anything in its path. Its head was massive, armed with huge blade-like teeth sharp enough to tear through flesh and strong enough to crush bone. Some believe it wasn't just eating fish or squid. It was hunting other marine reptiles. That's right, Thanatoarchon didn't just eat prey. It ate other hunters. This monster lived around 244 million years ago, meaning it appeared just a few million years after the worst mass extinction in Earth's history. While most life was still struggling to recover, Thanatoarchon was already at the top of the food chain. It was fast, it was brutal, and it was one of the first true apex predators the ocean had ever seen. In the prehistoric arms race for survival, the Archon proved one thing. If you're big enough, strong enough, and deadly enough, nothing can stop you. Thanatoarchon was a beast of raw power, crushing anything in its path. But deep in the waters of Pangea lurked a predator unlike anything else, a creature so bizarre, so nightmarish, that even today it still leaves people scratching their heads. This was Helicoprion, a shark-like killer with a weapon no other animal has ever had. At first glance, Helicoprion might look like any other ancient shark, but then you see its mouth, and that's when things get weird. Instead of a normal set of shark teeth, Helicoprion's entire lower jaw was a spiraled saw blade, a whirl of razor-sharp teeth coiled like a circular saw, ready to shred through anything that got too close. It was around 25 feet long and weighed up to 1,000 pounds, making it one of the largest cartilaginous fish ever found. It was as big as a modern great white, but some believe it hunted soft-bodied prey like squid, slicing through them with terrifying precision. Others think it used its whirling teeth to grind up fish and smaller marine creatures before swallowing them whole. Whatever the case, this thing was built for carnage. Helicoprion lived during the Permian period, meaning it swam in the oceans before even the first dinosaurs walked the earth. And despite its shark-like appearance, it wasn't a true shark. It was part of a weird and ancient group of fish called holocephalans, distant relatives of modern-day ratfish. Now you've seen the monsters of the deep and met the killers that stalk the land. But now we're going to look up, because in the skies above Pangea, other monsters were hunting. With a wingspan stretching over 26 feet, Tropeognathus looked like a hang glider with teeth. It had long knife-like jaws packed with sharp teeth, perfect for snatching fish right out of the water while soaring at top speed. It was built for flight, with hollow bones and massive wings, gliding effortlessly over the ancient coastline. If you were standing on the beach in Pangea, this thing could cast a shadow that blocked the sun, and if it dove toward you, you'd never hear it coming. They say size matters, and it turns out there was an even bigger flying beast. Ornithocheirus was the Sky King, with a wingspan that reached nearly 30 feet. It glided above the oceans like a flying battleship. It didn't need to flap often, just caught the wind and cruised for miles. Some believe it could travel for days at a time without landing. Its jaws were long and lined with conical teeth, ideal for plucking prey from the sea, and it may have even migrated across entire continents. Forget the eagles. This thing was prime Val-Air power. But not every fly relied on size. Some just looked like they flew straight out of a nightmare. This flying beast, named Pterodactylus, was just mean-looking, with a snout like a crocodile and a mouth full of needle-like teeth. It was a fish-hunting menace that patrolled the skies like a heat-seeking missile. It wasn't the biggest, about 16 feet across, but it had speed, precision, and a terrifying face you'd never forget. It's the kind of animal that looks fake when you first see it, until you realize this thing actually ruled the skies above ancient Brazil. And just when you thought these things couldn't get any weirder, another creature looked so strange that when it was found, it was mistaken for a toy. Ludodactylus, literally meaning toy finger, got its name because when its fossil was first discovered, it looked so unreal, people thought it was a hoax. But this thing was very real. It had a wingspan of about 13 feet, a long head with sharp teeth, and a crest on its snout like some kind of prehistoric fighter pilot. It wasn't just weird. It was built to fly, hunt, and dominate the skies over coastal Pangea. The skies were full of monsters. The oceans were even worse. And on land, the apex predators of the Triassic ruled with tooth and claw. But then everything changed. Pangea, the greatest landmass the Earth has ever seen, began to break apart. Continents drifted, climate shifted, old empires crumbled, and in the chaos, new giants rose. This wasn't just evolution. This was the dawn of the dinosaurs. The extinction event of the Permian-Triassic era, 252 million years ago, marked the beginning of the Mesozoic era, the Triassic, Jurassic, and Cretaceous periods, which lasted 186 million years. During the Triassic era, there was one vast supercontinent called Pangea, which was mostly vast deserts with a hot and dry climate, surrounded by a huge ocean called Panthalassa. Dinosaurs would begin to evolve during the mid to late Triassic period. When we talk about dinosaurs, we immediately imagine towering and thundering animals like Tyrannosaurus rex. But new research shows that dinosaurs and their pterosaur relatives evolved from extremely small ancestors. Proof of this theory was discovered in Madagascar when a newly discovered reptile species was found, named Congonophin or tiny bug slayer. It lived some 237 million years ago and stood just 10 centimeters tall. It's one of the first small animals found from the root of the ornithodyryn family tree and is an important discovery. The miniaturization event in which it lived served as a survival strategy for early ornithodyrans, and whereon its teeth showed the tiny creature preyed on insects. This eliminated the need for them to compete with their relative for meat. Furthermore, researchers of this tiny dinosaur relative showed that feathers and other fuzzy skin coverings found on the later true dinosaurs and pterosaurs likely originated to protect the tiny dino ancestors from the extreme climate of the mid to late Triassic period. When the first dinosaurs evolved, the Triassic marked the rise of the reptiles, mainly the archosaurs, or ruling lizards, and therapsids, or mammal-like reptiles. For reasons unknown, the archosaurs had an evolutionary edge, muscling out their mammal-like cousins and evolving by the mid to late Triassic into the first true dinosaurs, such as Eoraptor and Herosaurus. Dinosaurs were divided into two main branches, Saurischian, which means lizard-hipped, and Ornithischian, or bird-hipped dinosaurs. Eoraptor was at the root of the Saurischian family tree. It was only 91 centimeters long and weighed about 11 kilograms. It had long legs that allowed it to run fast, and its front paws had sharp claws that helped it grab prey. Heterosaurus was more advanced in evolution than the Eoraptor because it had a joint in its lower jaw. It had a large skull, and its jaws were armed with the sharp teeth of carnivore. It averaged in length from 3 to 6 meters and had 5 fingers on each paw with blunt claws. Styracosaurus was another early true dinosaur that was about 2 meters long, with a large skull as long as its femur, and there were 13 to 14 sharp teeth in its upper and lower jaws. It had short front paws with 5 fingers. It had long hind legs that allowed it to run fast. Styracosaurus was a predator that weighed about 30 kilograms, and although this dinosaur was kind of small, it probably had no trouble dealing with larger prey. Eoraptor, Heterosaurus, and Styracosaurus are prime examples of the rapid evolution of predatory dinosaurs 225 million years ago. But at the same time, the first plant-eating dinosaurs appeared in the fossil record. Permian-Triassic was a 1-meter-long dinosaur that weighed 2 to 9 kilograms and had closely spaced teeth forming a continuous edge for grinding plant matter. By the late Triassic period, there were at least 15 different dinosaurs. During the Jurassic period, Earth's climate changed from hot and dry to a much more humid and subtropical climate. Forests of ferns, cycads, and conifers began to cover the planet, and the air was warm, moist, with tropical breezes. During the beginning of this period, the breakup of the supercontinent Pangea continued and accelerated. Laurasia, the northern half of the continent, broke up into North America and Eurasia. The southern half, called Gondwana, began to break up during the mid-Jurassic. The eastern parts, Antarctica, Madagascar, India, and Australia, split off from the western half of Africa and South America. New oceans flooded the spaces in between. Huge mountains rose on the seafloor and pushed sea levels higher onto the continents. It was all this water that created the humid and subtropical climate. Deserts began to turn green. Palm tree-like cycads and conifer trees such as the araucaria and pine were abundant. The oceans became full of diverse and abundant life, and at the top of the ocean food chain were the marine reptiles, the plesiosaurs, with their long necks and paddle fin flippers. Among them were giant marine crocodiles, sharks, and rays. Ichthyosaurs, squid-like cephalopods, coil-shelled ammonites, sponges, snails, and mollusks were abundant in the ancient oceans. Coral reefs grew and expanded quickly in the warm waters, and microscopic plankton increased rapidly to the point that they may have turned part of the ocean red. The earliest known bird, Archaeopteryx, took to the skies in the late Jurassic, likely evolved from an early Coelurosaurian dinosaur. Archaeopteryx had to compete for airspace with pterosaurs, flying reptiles that had been buzzing the skies since the late Triassic. Meanwhile, insects such as leafhoppers and beetles were abundant, as were many of Earth's earliest mammals, scurrying around the feet of dinosaurs. It was at this time that the dinosaurs began making their mark in a huge way, literally. Small quadrupedal, plant-eating dinosaurs gradually evolved into multi-ton giants. The plant-eating sauropod named Brachiosaurus was 16 meters tall, stretched out to around 26 meters long, and could weigh as much as 25 tons. Another herbivorous giant named Diplodocus was 27 meters long and weighed between 30 to 50 tons. The sheer size of these dinosaur giants may have stopped the attacks of a bulky meat-eating dinosaur that walked on 2 powerful legs, who also lived during this time, the ominous Allosaurus. This huge carnivore ranged in size from 7 to 12 meters long, weighed nearly 2 tons, and had 16 sharp teeth in its jaws. Upper and lower jaw, and like many predatory dinosaurs of the Mesozoic era, Allosaurus constantly grew, shed, and replaced its 3 to 4 in teeth. And this dinosaur was fast. Models suggest that Allosaurus could run up to 34 kilometers per hour. Fossil evidence shows that Allosaurus preyed on Stegosaurus, and the plant-eating dinosaur fought back, punching holes right through Allosaurus bones with its spiky, clubbed tail. It could be why Stegosaurus had a pretty long run and survived all the way up to the late Cretaceous. But there were new predators that would come along that were as equally terrifying as the Allosaurus. The North American Tyrannosaurus rex could grow 12.5 m long and weighed up to 8 to 10 tons, although now some say it might have weighed half of these estimates. But the T-Rex wasn't alone in the meat-eating dinosaur category. In fact, it was either outclassed or equal to 2 other sharp-toothed monsters, the South American Giganotosaurus, which had the same type of build and weighed 9 tons, and the 10-ton Northern African Spinosaurus. Still, the T-Rex was a mean and nasty predator, if not downright unhygienic. Experts believe that shards of rotten, bacterial-laden meat were constantly lodged in its closely packed teeth, which gave the animal a septic bite that would eventually be fatal to its wounded prey. Of course, this process would have taken at least several days or weeks, and another T-Rex would probably reap the rewards. Scientists examining the T-Rex skull determined it had the bite force of between 1,500 to 5,000 pounds per square inch and could take bites of flesh in the 225 kilograms range. But Tyrannosaurus rex, like Allosaurus, had problems with prey itself. It lived in the same region and time period as some armored plant-eating dinosaurs. One of the most iconic dinosaurs next to T-Rex has to be Triceratops, which means three-horned face. All Triceratops had three horned skulls. Two massive horns were above the eye socket, and one smaller horn was over the nose. Weighing around 6.5 to 13 tons, the biggest Triceratops was 9 m long from nose to tail. The tips of their shoulders were 3 m off the ground. Triceratops had teeth arranged in dental batteries, and each individual tooth was stacked in a vertical column of 3 to 5 teeth. These formed rows with 36 to 40 tooth-loaded columns. This means that a single Triceratops could have 800 teeth at its disposal. It had a narrow beak and powerful jaws that allowed it to grind down tough vegetation and trees. It's one of the last non-avian dinosaurs to evolve at the end of the Cretaceous. Ankylosaurus is another of the most famous armored dinosaurs. It was the largest ankylosaurid and the last of its kind. It's thought to have lived right up to the end of the Cretaceous period. The body of Ankylosaurus was covered in bony plates. It had a beak and teeth, and 4 horns that projected backwards from its head. Its tail ended in a club, which provided protection from predators. This would have been useful since Ankylosaurs lived alongside Tyrannosaurus rex and other meat-eating predators. At some point during the middle of the Cretaceous period, dinosaurs from the ornithopod family evolved into the popular duck-billed dinosaurs. They were large, oddly shaped, low-slung vegetation eaters with tough beaks on their snouts, which were used for shredding vegetation. These dinosaurs are believed to have lived in herds and were capable of walking on 2 legs. Sauropods became even bigger by the late Cretaceous period. You may have thought that Brachiosaurus and Diplodocus were big, but by the time the late Cretaceous period rolled around, there was another dinosaur that existed which could possibly be the biggest land animal that's ever walked the earth, Argentinosaurus. This behemoth could be 30 to 40 m in length and weighed between 50 and 100 tons. It was a member of the Titanosauria, the dominant group during the Cretaceous period, and was an herbivore like its earlier sauropod cousins. There was also a strange new breed of dinosaur that lived 20 million years before they all went extinct. They were called pachycephalos, or bone-headed dinosaurs, and had a bizarre-looking skull with horns on the snout and around the base of the skull. These could have been used to fight off the last of the big predators, or even to show dominance over their own species. Of course, there are more than 700 different dinosaurs that have been found so far, but not enough time to cover them all in one video. There are some dinosaurs that lived in the colder regions when they were further south and within the Antarctic Circle during the Cretaceous. During this time, there could have been some snow and ice and temperatures as low as -10 degrees Celsius during the 3-month-long dark winters. There were a variety of different dinosaurs living in this polar zone. In 2014, a skull section and upper and lower jawbones were found of a miniature T-Rex called Nenexaurus hoglundi. It's believed that many dinosaurs had feathers to protect them from the elements, and this tiny T-Rex cousin was about 6 m long. It's now believed that all species of Tyrannosaurus rex had feathers to protect them from the elements, and Nenexaurus was no different. Other dinosaurs, like the horned and duck-billed dinosaurs, along with other small feathery predators, parrot-like oviraptors, and a small herbivore named Lilinosaura lived in the polar region as well. But their time would soon come to an end. Everyone talks about how dramatically the dinosaurs went extinct, but judging by the whopping 165 million years they survived, they might just be the most successful vertebrate animals to ever exist on planet Earth. In fact, some dinosaur relatives are still around on the planet today. Modern-day birds are in fact descendants of feathered dinosaurs, and you might be surprised to learn that crocodiles are the closest living relatives to birds, as they shared a common ancestor. The two groups are the only known survivors of the archosaurs. We all know what happened to the dinosaurs, and if you missed our video on the day the dinosaurs went extinct, we'll put a link in the description for you. Please let us know in the comments what you thought about the video and tell us what you'd like to see next. Stay tuned for more cool videos, and thanks for watching Dark Core.